I immediately felt a buzzing sensation all over my body. How you do a sit up almost, and then my
Yeah.
body just went limp. I just went limp, and I couldn't. I just felt like my whole body was asleep, like that feeling when people get when their foot falls asleep. I just
Oh my God,
felt
I
it.
get that.
Yeah, I had a really sharp pain on my neck. I knew immediately what had happened. A couple seconds passed by, and I said, "Dan, I think you just broke your neck." There was nobody around yet, because the play had just happened, right? I think my team thought I just needed a second to get up, but I couldn't, and I had that sharp pain in my neck, and I was like, "Uh-oh, something's really wrong here."
Welcome to the Nick Speaks podcast, where we speak up, speak out, and speak loud for the disabled community. Tune in every Tuesday, and don't forget to subscribe. And now your host, Nicolas Comstock.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this brand new episode of the Nick Speaks podcast, the podcast dedicated to the disabled community, where we speak up, speak out, and speak loud. I am your host, Nick Comstock. You guys, I am so glad to be with you on this Tuesday. I'm glad to be with you every Tuesday, but today I'm especially glad to be with you because it is yours truly's birthday. I'm 36 years old today. Another trip around the sun. I can't believe it. And I have an amazing guest with me today. A couple weeks ago in episode 81, I had one of the co-hosts of the Wheelchair Roundtable podcast, Rico Segovia. And today I have his other co-host, Daniel Flores, and he has an inspiring story, I think. I know a lot of you are like, oh God, I don't want to be inspiration porn. Well, as I like to say, as long as I don't have to take my clothes off and I can still be inspirational and call it porn, I don't mind. So, um, anyway, this guy has an inspiring story. And as I've said in many of my TikToks and podcast episodes, it takes seconds to become a part of the disabled community. And my guest, Daniel Flores, knows all about that. And he's going to tell us a story, what he does, because I think he is just amazing. So please help me welcome to Nick Speaks, Daniel Flores. Daniel, how are you doing today, sir?
Thank you, Nick. I'm doing well. Happy birthday. I'm doing well. I can't complain. It's a good day. Pretty relaxed right now, so I'm ready to go. Let's do this. I'm pumped.
Well, I'm pumped that you're here. And for those of you who don't know what the Wheelchair Roundtable is, I would encourage you to check that podcast out. Because number one, I just did an episode with them and I think it's the best. Even though I didn't even listen to my own episode because I don't like the sound of my own voice, but I still think it's
Yeah.
the best. And these guys are just great. And I'm going to start downloading your podcasts and listening to them, except mine, because I don't like the sound of my own. But so if you haven't, check out the Wheelchair Roundtable. Now, Dan, we've got a lot to talk about today. So, you, as I've said, it took seconds for you to unfortunately become a part of the disabled community. And I want to talk to you about that. And I just want my audience to get to know you a little bit before we get into all that. So, tell everybody about you and where you are now, and then kind of we'll get into your story, ask a lot of questions, and have some fun.
Okay. So a little bit about me right now. As of right now, what am I, 46 now? I am a teacher, professor at a local high school. I teach at the high school, but I'm technically a professor since I teach the college class for the kids that are working on college credits in high school. And I just finished my 10th year as a teacher. At the end of February was my 10th year. And what else? I love what I do. You know, um, there's been a lot of changes going on, but I just roll with the punches and do as best I can. But that's what I do right now. So I'm just a teacher. Um, you know, Nothing much else aside from, yes, the podcast that we do that we started last summer, which I'm like you, I haven't listened to my episode as well. I don't really listen to that many of our episodes because I too don't like the sound of my voice. I think that's just a common thing. I don't know why, but I just if I listen to them, I'll listen to maybe our guests that are on, and but if I'm gonna listen, if I hear my voice, I just kind of try to fast forward through that.
Well, see, that's the problem. So, in a lot of my episodes, I'm doing interviews and some of them I do monologue. And so
Right.
I love my guest, but I don't ever go back and listen to their episodes because
Right.
that requires me to go back and listen to questions and be like, oh, I cut them off too soon, da 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 da. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, no. When I first started this podcast back in August 2024, that's interesting. Did we start around the same time? When did you guys start?
We started around last summer, so maybe June, July of 2025. Yeah. So it hasn't even been a year.
Okay, okay. So I am what they consider, because I've been doing this for 2 years now. In your case, I'm what they consider an old timer. So
Yeah.
um I'm a proud to be the father of disabled podcasting. Not
It,
not
you,
really.
yeah, I mean, it's one of those things I didn't really see myself doing at all, right? Like, you got your bingo card. Being on a podcast or starting one was not on my bingo card of things that was coming in this part of my life. Not at all.
Yeah, well, it had to be a part of, and thankfully, because I talked about on your show a lot that I was told that I was not employable because of my
Right.
disability.
And
So,
that drove me crazy when you said that. I hate to hear that kind of stuff.
yeah, and so I literally, my producer Kyle has been a godsend, and we started this journey on Nick Speaks 2 years ago. This year we'll be going into our third year, and that's hard to believe. But enough about me, because even though it's my birthday, they didn't tune in to hear me talk about myself. So, um, like I said, it took seconds for you to become a part of this community. So why don't you take everybody through a little bit about what your life was like before disability, and then what happened? And don't worry if you get emotional or anything, it's all good here. What happened when that took place, and some emotion
Okay.
you through.
So I got hurt in July 21st of 2007, and I was 27 at the time. But leading up until that, right, a couple years before that, I was a college student, a working college student. I was working at a chiropractic office, figuring life out. And I did what any 27-year-old does, just hang out with friends, stay up when I shouldn't stay up, or when I should be studying for an exam. Um, just a typical guy. I was
Mhm.
an athlete. I played whenever as part of the thing I did on the side was I played flag football. We did it competitively there for the university that I was at, and for the city league that I was in as well. And it was one of the coolest things that I did, because not only I enjoyed being competitive, but we got to travel a lot. We traveled East Coast, sometimes West Coast, and a lot of states in between. I think because of flag football, I might have been visited about 20, 25 states in all. Um, Even played in deep Mexico for a tournament over there. Got invited one time to play with a team in Canada. I think it was Team USA's like practice team or whatever. They wanted us to go practice with them and play in Canada. I got to meet so many awesome people. I was a pre-med student at the time. In 2007 would have been about 10 years that I was in college, and in those 10 years, you would have thought that I would have finished and had already graduated, but it took me a while to figure out what I wanted to do. I had started off as a computer science major and then into literature and English and art and music. But during that time with my co-host Rico, I met him when I started working at a pharmacy. I was a delivery driver for a
Mhm.
couple years, and that's how I met Rico. But being there kind of is what drove me into the sciences and the interest in something medical field related. I didn't know what at the time. I was at that point, I was maybe, 21, 22. And then I got let go from that job. I went somewhere else. I was doing other things. I worked at a golf course. Was a magician at one point, which is a hobby I still enjoy. Um, but
Okay.
yeah, it's something that I still do. We can talk about that a little later, but um,
Can you make
eventually,
wheelchair
at some
disappear?
yeah, yeah, I'm gonna start floating around. Uh,
Yeah.
but eventually, I found myself working at a chiropractic office, and that's where I said, okay, you know what, this is what I want to do. Um, and cool enough, the boss, the chiropractor of that office, was also kind of the sponsor of that flag football team that I was playing with. Um, so aside from playing with them and playing with the university, right? I was able to go all sorts of places, like I said. About 7 months, 6 months, 7 months. No, yeah, about 7 months before I got hurt, with the university team that I was the captain for. We won the national championship in flag football. We got rings and everything. We celebrated all that. That was a really high moment for me. And then so I around that time was the birth of my first niece. So I had a lot of stuff going, right? I was an uncle. I was at the top of my game. We were winning national championships. I was already getting into talks about with a university in Dallas where I was going to go to school for chiropractic school. I had already done my paperwork, gotten all my paperwork done so I could have my application done, and I was kind of a shoe in to go. And then we just happened to have a tournament in Denver, Colorado that July, and it was just like any other tournament. And just a random play where I was on defense and we went up for the ball, me and the guy that was going for the ball, and I slipped and I fell on my butt, and while I was in the sitting position, I was still kind of sliding, and he was looking up, bobbling the ball as I was sliding, and he tripped over me, and his thigh essentially hit the back of my head, and he fell over me, and I went down this way, and that's when I broke my neck at that point. So I think it's called hyperflexion. So I went down and I fell on my back, and I immediately felt a buzzing sensation all over my body. And I remember getting up about halfway, so like how you do a sit up almost, and then my
Yeah.
body just went limp. I just went limp, and I couldn't. I just felt like my whole body was asleep, like that feeling when people get when their foot falls asleep. I just
Oh my God.
felt it.
That. Yeah.
Yeah, and I had a really sharp pain on my neck. Like I knew immediately what had happened. A couple seconds passed by, and I said, "Dan, I think you just broke your neck." There was nobody around yet, because the play had just happened, right? I think my team thought I just needed a second to get up, but I couldn't. And I had that sharp pain in my neck, and I was like, "Uh-oh, something's really wrong here." Eventually, my team shows up, and my boss, the chiropractor, he comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, Dan, what's going on?" I told him, "Hey, doc, I think I broke my neck." And he was like, "What?" And I said, "Yeah, I have a sharp pain in my neck, and I'm having trouble breathing. It felt like somebody was standing on my chest."
Yeah.
And then you could start to see like a little bit of panic around some of the players because they were gathered around me, and I just remember thinking like, "Don't freak out, don't freak out. Call whoever it is you need to call." But I knew at that point there was trouble, and I didn't. A lot of people that get spinal cord injuries, a lot of times it happens because of some sort of like accident in a vehicle or some other sports accident or whatever, right? And a lot of times, people that I've met, a lot of times they kind of black out, or something happened during the accident that
Right.
caused them to black out, and then they wake up a couple days later, and it's like, what's happened? In my case, I never blacked out. I remember the drive to the hospital. I remember my boss on the phone with my parents telling him, "Hey, I'm on the in the ambulance with your son, and we're headed to the hospital." And I remember telling him to tell my parents, tell them that I'm okay. And I remember going into the emergency room. It was painful once I was in the emergency room because they put that halo around my head, and they started to kind of yank on my head. And I remember feeling like hearing a crunching. Um, and there short after they started to put like this hose in my nose, and I was having none of it. And they said, we're gonna put you under. We're gonna have to do emergency surgery." And I just blacked out, and then I just remember waking up, I guess, the next day, and my friends were there, the doc was there, and one of my teammates was there, and it was kind of a blur, but that's what the first day was what I remember. It wasn't until the second day when my parents got there. And
Wow. Your
Yeah,
parents were they in Texas?
yeah, they were in Texas, but a friend of ours, he worked at the local airport, and he was able to get them some tickets to go see me up in Denver. Let me just clear this real quick. And so they were there pretty quick. Um, I think I don't know if they were there the following night, maybe the next day they were there that night. But again, I was so drugged up and doozy from all the medicine they had me on that first day or two was kind of a blur because I had that surgery that day, and then a couple days after that, I had a second surgery because they fused it from. Actually, the first day they fused it from the front. So I'm a C5, C6 incomplete spinal cord injury, which means I broke my C5 and C6 bone. So they went in here off to this side, and they fused the two bones from the front. And then a couple days later, they fused it from the back. So if you look at an X-ray, you'll see a plate on the front and the back of my neck, and that'll stay there forever. But yeah, that's what happened the first couple of days.
What I'm surprised to know is when we were doing the pre-interview and now, I'm surprised to find out that you weren't in any, at least maybe I'm missing something, that you weren't in any, like, you weren't screaming in pain right after that. You were just numb.
Yeah, I was. Like I said, it was just a buzz. I guess it's like that's the only way I can explain it. It's like a buzzy, numb feeling that I had through my entire body. And I think maybe I wasn't. I felt it, but I wasn't too worried about it. What I was more worried about was, at least initially, was just concentrating on breathing because, like I said, it felt like somebody was standing on my chest. So I was just like really having to think about taking deep breaths. Because that's the one thing aside from the pain on my neck, but that's the one thing I was really worried about is that's the thing that I think worried me most.
Wow. So you had two surgeries
Mm,
back to back
right.
in 2 days,
Yeah.
and they had you on so many drugs you didn't,
Yeah.
I mean, at least you weren't in that much pain, I guess. Uh,
Yeah. I It's hard to say what kind of pain I would have been on had I not been on the drugs. Because again, it seems like a weird thing for them to give you pain medicine when your body's kind of numb, but I guess it's just a precaution or something. Who knows?
yeah. So how long after the medications wore off did you really start to feel pain? Like, oh my God, this is excruciating type of deal.
Um, to be honest, I never really did. I I didn't feel any pain, to be honest. I think what was it was more of was like just a discomfort, right? Because I had that neck brace on, and I've even before my accident, I always did okay with pain. Um, because when I was younger, I experienced pain, like growth pains. I had really bad growth pains when I was younger. And then I used to have some slight kidney problems, and that was painful for me when I was younger. And I think I just kind of maybe I grew a bit of a pain tolerance. So the pain was, if it was there, it didn't really mess with me as much as I mean, who knows what would have happened if it would have just different circumstances, but I think I was okay at blocking out pain, even till now. Like right now, I have some discomfort, but I just kind of block it out, and I'm okay.
Yeah.
And just focus
Wow.
on other things. But yeah, I told them, there was pretty quickly within, I'm sure, the first week, if they could get me off that pain medicine, because every time I've had surgery for other things, anytime I was given like pain medicine, I just had some really weird dreams, and I don't feel myself.
Yeah.
So they got me off pretty quick. Um,
Yeah. You hallucinate, which happens to me too. And,
yeah,
um, er, when I'm in a tremendous a lot of pain, my
mm,
body rejects pain medication. And
yeah,
so I totally, and then, I remember being on some pretty high stuff when I had some severe pain back in my past. And it was,
right,
I was just hallucinating and sweating. I think there was Dilaudid patches or something, or something to that effect. And not only
oh,
did it make me sweat and hallucinate and be all kinds of craziness, but it made me physically sick and just throw up. So I
right,
was like, I totally couldn't do that. So
no.
did you know, like, the second the accident happened, like, my life is changed and I'm now disabled? Or did that thought even cross your mind yet?
No, pretty quickly I said to myself, Dan, you probably have this spinal cord injury, and you probably aren't going to walk anymore. Um, to what extent, and would I be able to do things later or not? I hadn't really thought about yet. But what I did know is that I might not ever walk again. That was for sure. I was like, yeah, this is a big probability. It's probably going to happen, right? And I think knowing that, at least for me, right? Maybe for some people it might freak them out, but I think for me, knowing right away the implications of what just happened probably put me at ease, because I right away I was like, okay, I know what's happened, and I think I know what I'm in for, right? Whereas if it were a surprise or something that I would have like woken up to, that shock, I don't know if it would have changed my thought process or not. But for me at that point, I'm glad that it happened the way it did, and I was aware of everything, because I pretty quickly processed it, and told myself, okay, this might have happened. Don't freak out. I mean, freak out a little bit, but I mean, just whatever's about to happen is gonna suck. But I've been through, I was an athlete, and like the physical stuff for me, I've been able to, it's just something I grew up being able to do. And there's been things that I've done before that have sucked. And I just tell myself, this is gonna suck, but it's only for a short while, and do what you can and push through it. And I think I started telling myself that pretty quickly. I didn't know what I was gonna go through, but I knew it was gonna be tough.
Yeah, that's amazing that you were able to have that perception already. And were you I know I didn't ask you this in the pre-call, but were you dating at the time of your accident?
No, well, I had about 7 or 8 months, maybe 9 months before that. I had finished, or had not finished, I had ended, uh, a a long-term relationship that I'd been in. Well, I say long-term, about 3 years. And so in that 7 months or 8 months, there was somebody that I was interested in, but it wasn't serious. It was just somebody from school that I was interested in, but, we were just kind of barely, beginning to talk, so it was nothing serious. But probably feel that given another month or two, it could have gotten to the point of getting more serious. But no, nothing too serious. Just somebody that I had kind of like narrowed my choices down into, and said, okay, you know what? I think I might start dating this girl at some point. You know.
And so after your accident, did that possibility of dating that girl go out the window for you?
No, it just, I didn't think about it, but also I said to myself, "You know what? If this is a tough situation, like, I know it's a tough situation, and I did not wanna put her or anybody for that matter in that spot where they have to be like,
Right.
am I a dick for saying no to this guy now that he's hurt? Or I don't know. I just said, you know what? If she wants to, move on, I'm okay with that. I totally understand it. I didn't put any pressure on her. It's like, hey, I got hurt and this is what's going on. And, at least and, if you want to call from time to time or if you want to check up, I'm okay with that. But I didn't want her to feel like she had to like stick around for any of that. And so that's what I did. I was okay with it. It wasn't like I was like, damn, this sucks. There's this girl that I like. It wasn't like that at all. I just told myself, hey, it's okay if this stops. I'm okay with it.
Wow. You know,
Um,
just sitting here talking to you within the last few minutes, your outlook is so much more different um than I think mine would have been if I would have been in your situation.
yeah.
Um
I mean, who's to say what it would have been had I been in a serious relationship? I don't know. I have a feeling that I probably would have maybe been the same and offered them an out.
yeah.
Um, but if they were to take it or not, that would have been up to them. But I think that's probably what I would have done. Um, Again, it would have probably been different had I been serious with somebody, or even if like I were married. I don't know what I would have done. Um, it's just one of those things where, you could play the what if thing and think about that. But in my case, that's just what it was at that time, and that's what I did. Um, what I will say is my ex girlfriend that I had broken up with, she did go see me at the hospital, and she was there with me that first week. And I'm totally appreciative of that. And even though we broke up before that, we've always remained really good friends. And to this day we still talk. And it's something that I'll never forget for her doing for me was being there for me when I was at my worst.
Wow, that's amazing.
You know?
That really is amazing. The reason why one of the reasons why I'm so impressed with you and your outlook is, and the reason why I say I think you have a better outlook than I would is because I told you in the pre-call that my mom would always encourage me to try to get to know the men, the other men that were in wheelchairs in my church.
Uh-huh.
And most of those men, if not all of those men, were, like you. They were living normal lives. And then all of a sudden they had a terrible accident that totally changed their life and it put them in a wheelchair. And I would always tell my mom, and I would probably still tell her this to this day, I don't feel like I can relate to those men because they had something at one point that I've never had. And me being a man of faith, in my opinion, please nobody come after me for this, but I think you would understand. In my opinion, God allowed that to be taken away from them. And so I would
Mhm.
understand the okay. That's why I think you're remarkable because I wouldn't be able to understand. I wouldn't be able to comprehend. Okay, this is my life now. It sucks, but we'll move on. And I honestly think that I would be very bitter at
Mhm.
at God, you know,
Right.
the world for taking away my life when I had everything going for me. If I had
Right.
scholarships, if I was going to school to be a chiropractor. And one of the reasons you knew that you had broken your neck right away is because you had been in school studying
Right.
chiropractor and it chiropractic, excuse me. You had been in school studying chiropractor, so you knew that where your neck was, and you knew how your body was set up because you were just learning that. And so that's
Right.
how you were like, Doc, I think I broke, this. And pretty
Yeah.
soon you got to the doctor and they were able to confirm your worst nightmare, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But that's why I say that I admire you. And I will say that probably throughout this podcast because I don't know if I would have been able to have the same attitude. Like, oh, well, it sucks. We'll move on.
Right. I well, I mean, I don't know if, like you say, you've got your faith, and I have. Nowadays, I'm not so much religious. I'm more, I get spiritual at this point. But um, when you said you're angry or whatnot, I think there was this older gentleman. I was just at a bar one time. This was after I got hurt. Um,
Yeah.
Waiting for some friends, and I got there before everyone else did. And it's an older gentleman, an older white man, just having a drink at the bar. And he said hi to me, and we started talking. And he asked me, we were having a conversation like you and I are. He asked me what happened to me, and I explained everything to him. And we got into talking about me being angry or not, or and and it got to a section where he's like, Are you a man of faith?" And I'm like, "Well, I've got my faith. It's might not be super to the T religious kind of thing, but I've got a faith." And I said, I feel anger from time to time." And he asked, Do you feel like you're mad at God?" And I said, "I don't know. I don't know if I don't know if that's a thing for me." But he said, "Well, if you ever do, it's okay." He said, "If you can't, a lot of people," I guess he had talked to people in the past. He said, "A lot of people feel like it's not okay to be mad at God." And he said, "If you want to be mad, be mad." And he said, if that God can't handle you being mad, then what kind of God is that, right?" And I thought, well, that makes some sense.
Yeah.
And not to say that I was or am. I've been upset, right? Sometimes I feel like, why would this happen to me or blah blah blah. But I don't know. I've always kind of looked at it differently, and I'm more of a in the moment now, I guess, and I don't put too much into other things outside. And so I think that's kind of maybe where I come from. I kind of like just worry about what I could worry about, and not worry about all that bigger stuff, right? I'm not smart enough for all that bigger stuff. um and so I just kind of, I guess that's my approach to things, for better or worse. I mean, I know it can be a bad thing. I also have this idea, or this way of thinking where, and it's I know it can be bad, where I expect the worst but hope for the best. That way I'm not
Yeah.
disappointed. um
Well, that's what I was always taught. Expect the worst,
right.
but for the best. And, I guess that's a normal thing for people to look at and say, but at the same time, I just kind of feel like if you're always expecting the worst, then
Right.
the worst, the worst is more likely to happen. I mean,
Right. No, and I know that's why I said it's probably for the worst that I think that. But I don't think I do it with everything. I may do it with bigger things. Um, but I think I'm okay if what I wanted to happen or hope to happen doesn't, because I think I know that I can always figure out a different way of accomplishing something or doing something or something happening, right? To me, all it means is, okay, maybe today's not the day. Maybe tomorrow. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Um,
Did
and so if it happens, great. If it doesn't,
yeah.
there's always tomorrow.
Did you ever think, maybe I won't be paralyzed forever? Maybe there's a chance that I could, be quote
So
unquote normal again?
I remember I remember there's this book that they give that everyone gets with spinal cord injury. It's the Christopher Reeves Foundation book for spinal cord injuries, or just for, it's for paralysis, but spinal cord injuries is one of the topics that's covered in there. And I remember reading a chart, and it kind of broke down your chances of walking. So are you a complete injury? Are you an incomplete injury? What level? And I remember reading mine, right? C5, C6, incomplete. And I remember it says that I have like a 12% chance. And I thought to myself, okay, that means pretty much none, right? In my head, immediately that's where I went to. Because, that's, I guess that's the, maybe the good or the bad, depending how you look about it, of being a person of science like I am, where I look at numbers and statistics and science all the time. I'm a biology teacher. And I know more often than that that that's I see 12%. I'm like, "Ugh, that's a low, low, low percentage."
Sure.
So I just immediately tell myself, "You know what? It's probably not gonna happen." Is it possible? Sure, but not very probable. And then I immediately tell myself, "Okay, so what can I do?" I'm not gonna worry about that 12% anymore, right? That's out the door for now, right? Because I figured if I dwell on that 12%, well, I'm missing, my 88% over here that could be amazing, right? And so I'm just like, okay, if that comes, that comes. I'm going to do what I can in case that 12% comes. I'll get healthy as possible as I can. I'll work out. I'll be strong. I'll do all these things, but let's do this 88% and let's just worry about that. You know what I mean?
That's a perfect way to worry about the 88% that you can control. And if you end up
Right.
controlling the 12%, then
Yeah.
great. If not, great. I love that outlook. Um,
And
you're you're teaching me so
I,
much as I sit here. So I
and I
appreciate.
don't, I mean, I don't know where I get that from. It could be my parents. My dad was always, all about strong mind, right? He was my coach a lot of times. It's like, hey, you need to concentrate on this. Boom, 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 right? Just like a dad that has their kid in sports and they're just kind of, bam, 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 right? So I get
Yeah.
that kind of part from my dad. My mom was
Yeah.
the calm one, the loving one, the one that I could lean on a lot, right? And then I had my younger sister. She always has my back, right? So I think all of that combined kind of allowed me to be able to kind of be be more optimistic. Even though, like I said, even though I think for the big stuff, I expect the worst, but hope for the best. But I think that's for like I said, the bigger stuff, but like my day-to-day stuff, I'm very optimistic about the stuff that I'm gonna do today or tomorrow or a week from now, right? The big stuff, like finding a girl that might want to go out with me sometime, that would be eh, I probably won't happen, right? That's when it comes to those things, that's where I'm at, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just I think that's how I kind of do my thing, right? Like it's just I don't know.
You're very what I would call realistic. And I love having this conversation with you because honestly, it's unlike anything that I've ever experienced. Just the fact that you're so like, oh, it happened. Okay. And I love, and we'll get into this in a little bit. I love that you immediately shifted your focus. Like, you didn't let this stop you. Like, you were like, I got to
Right.
finish school. I got to get a job. I got to, and
Yeah.
I just love that about you. But before we get into that, I want to talk about your parents and how they reacted to it. So each individually, like, do you remember your dad's first response? Was he like, I mean,
I
from
think
what you've already told me, your dad's pretty level headed and we'll just deal with it.
yeah, I think, when I've talked to my mom about I don't think I've talked to my dad about it, but I think when I talked to my mom about it, and when she told me about the day that they found out, I think my dad was cutting the yard when they found out, and I think she said that he was kind of in a daze, maybe he was just I don't think they were just kind of in disbelief, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Um, but I know that no matter how bad they thought it was in their head, they just wanted to be there as soon as possible. Um, and and I knew they would, right? But when they got there, it was nothing but love. It was nothing but reassurance that they were going to be there for me. It was nothing but everything I needed, right, for
Uh-huh.
me to get through that part, right? That first
Yeah.
that first initial shock of what had just happened. And I knew that anything that I was gonna need, to get done or for them to be there for me, they were gonna do it, right? I never had a doubt that, my immediate family, my mom, my dad, even my sister and brother-in-law were gonna not be there for me. I knew immediately that I had the backup, right, that I needed to be able to go through what I was about to go through. And I'm lucky, like I am extremely lucky, that I have that family and that structure and that backing um that has always been there for me.
Yeah, and I love what you told me was that your mom kind of immediately realized that she was going to have to be
Yeah.
your caregiver. And can you tell
Yeah.
me what those first few days were like for you, because you're going from being completely able-bodied, doing everything yourself,
Well,
to
yeah.
now having, strangers see you naked.
Right.
Mom is having to take
Yeah.
care of you again like she did when you were first born. Yeah.
Right, right.
So what was
So
your feelings all through that?
um well, again, I didn't really kind of snap into what was really going on around me until about a week and a half afterwards, right? When the drugs were off and I was like, okay, I know what's going on now, right? I'm over this blur, what's gonna happen. And at that point that already my parents remember them telling that I may never walk again. I don't think I ever remember them hearing that, but they said that they were told that by the doctor and they said I was there. I just don't remember. But once I learned about the hospital I was at, I so the hospital I was at, by the way, was Denver Health, and I believe that's the hospital where there was a big what was it, the Columbine kids? Remember the Columbine shootings back in the day? I think
Yeah.
that's the hospital that they were taken to, so it was a level 1 trauma hospital, and as I got to know the people there, I had a lot of confidence in that they knew what they were doing, a lot. Like, I know I've been to hospitals with like, if I'm visiting a friend or somebody, a loved one that's in there for something, and I think we all have gone. We've seen people who are like, "Do these guys know what they're doing? Are they doing this right?" Right? When I was there, I never felt like they didn't know what was going on,
Right.
and I felt like they were very exact into what we needed to know what was going on and what it is that was gonna happen. They were pretty up straight with us at least, and, so it was reassuring for them to be like, "This is what's going on, this is what's gonna happen, this is what you need to start expecting, and this is the plan of attack," right? So, um, that first the first 2 weeks that I was in ICU, right, it was like, "Okay, I know what's happening." And then I went upstairs, for 4 weeks to the, rehab department of the hospital, and it was there that I was alone now because when I was in ICU, someone could always stay with me. My mom, my dad, or my ex-girlfriend stayed in the room with me. Um, and that whole like people seeing me naked or me just going to the restroom by myself on the bed, like I just kind of it was one of those things that I just told myself like there's nothing I can do about this. Like there's nothing I can do about it. Why am I going to worry about that? And my parents, they're here. They love me no matter what. My ex-girlfriend, she didn't go anywhere. She's still there. Even though we weren't together, I know she loves me, right? And she's not going anywhere. So what am I
Yeah.
worried about? Right? Like, and so I started to get a little bit of that, okay, Dad, everything's gonna be okay kind of thing. But it wasn't until I went upstairs that I kind of took a little bit of a dip. Because when I was upstairs, you're supposed to share a room, and I never had anybody there with me. The I was there for a whole month, and there was no one there with me. And you couldn't have anybody stay with you in the room overnight. So those nights were the worst.
Wow.
Because it was at that point it's it's a hospital room, and if you have another person staying with you in that room, right? Like a lot of hospitals, you can't have people stay over with you at night. I still remember my first night there. But it was those nights of not being able to fall asleep and, you know, thinking that I started to think negative thoughts, right? That was the only time. About a week or so that I was just fuck this, right? Like just end me, right? Like somebody just get sick or something, and just because as positive as I was going into it, I was like, dude, what am I like? What am I doing? I can't do anything, right? And I started to let those things mess with me a bit. Um, and then and then things changed slowly. I could say there's a lot of reasons where I just kind of flipped. I think it was more of a combinations of things. Um,
Hmm.
One was I started to get my butt kicked by the occupational and physical therapist there. So I was
Yeah.
doing things that I was familiar with. I was pushing my body in ways that I was like, "Oh my god, like what kind of therapy is this?" And you're telling me to push, and I can't really do that. How do you expect me to do that? But they were just doing it, and I was like, I gotta figure it out, right? It was something that I was used to, right? When I used to work out and do things like that.
Sure.
Um,
For
and
sure.
that helped. Um, I also I had the best view. This is a weird story, but I had the best view. Right outside my window, there's a park. I forget the name of the park, and then on the other side of the park is downtown Denver. And that was my view for a month. I would see the big city right outside my window. I was in the sixth floor. Um, And then further this way, I don't know what that was northwest, I think. Um, I had a beautiful view of the Rocky Mountains. And I used to see the sunset over the Rocky Mountains every night. And there was just something about that was just beautiful to me, right? I don't want to say it was like a divine intervention or anything like that. It was just something I was like, man, like that's gorgeous. Why am I moping? Right? There's this beautiful stuff going on outside every day. Like, you have many of more of those to go, and so that kinda got me going. Now, the thing that I was having a lot of trouble with was there was nobody in that level, in that rehab part that had an injury like myself. So that was a little tough, like, I couldn't relate to anybody.
Hmm.
And the other thing is I hadn't been able to see anybody else yet. I hadn't seen any other patients. Um,
Yeah.
but
Sure. That
there was
was
one
rough.
yeah, there was one patient that I heard for a couple of nights. I would randomly hear this patient yelling, like, just yelling. Like, I'd wake
Yeah.
up, like, "What is going on?" Just yelling, yelling, yelling. Like, "What is going on?" Like, and I would ask around, when the nurses would come in or the PTs, it's like, "Oh, it's this patient. He's just having a bad time," or whatever. But they never gave me details until one day I finally got to eat with everybody, in the common, like, breakfast area, and I was excited about meeting the other patients that were in the wing where I was at.
Yeah.
And I heard that yelling again. I was like, "Why is it getting closer?" And then the guy that was yelling, he came in, and, shit you not, it was watching death in the face, like, literally, his face was missing. Um, I found out later that he had tried to commit suicide, and I guess it was over a breakup with a girl or something, and I think the way the gun went off or whatever, it it caused him to lose his jaw, his nose, he was blind, and now I could see why he was in pain. And I thought to myself, like, Dan, like, I don't know his story. I don't know what he's going well, I can imagine. I can only imagine what he's going through. But Dan, there's people out here that have it worse than you do. It's time to pick it up now and do what you need to do to get better every day. And it was just a kind of combination of all those things that I just kind of, after that first week of being upstairs, that I kind of said, okay, you know what, Dan, that's it. Enough moping and let's get to work for real now. And so that was a little bit about what was going on that first month.
So
Just trying
after
to,
weeks, you had this epiphany and were like, I have to move on from this.
yeah, I didn't want to be stuck. And I knew that I was doing some work, but I was just kind of going through the motions.
Hmm.
Not that I was just going through the motions, and I knew that I could do better. Um, and luckily, I had some friends I had a friend that lived up there, and she came to visit me and celebrated my 28th birthday there. I finally got to go outside after a month. I finally went outside. My dad took me and my parents took me out to get some sun. Hadn't been outside in a month. There was a bunch of little victories, right? Little things that I was starting to be able to do. I remember the first day that my dad would always come in and kind of like flick my foot. And I remember one day I was like, "Hey, I just felt that." And he says, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Yeah, I felt you hit it." And I said, "Squeeze a toe." And I said, "I just felt that." And he's like, he started easy first. He's like, "Am I squeezing your right or your left?" And I was like, "That's my left foot." He's like, "Yeah, you're right." And then I said, "Try to pick a certain toe." And more often than not, I got it right. And I was like, "Hey, I can feel that." Again, it wasn't like normal. It was just a really numb, kind of like a feather feel. But I was like, "Hey, that's something." Um, and I was able to my arms were getting a little bit stronger because initially I could like, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but initially I could just kind of do that. That's pretty much I could do. I could shrug my shoulders. If I could lift my arm like that, it was hard. But after that first month, I was getting some strength back, so things were looking up.
Wow. Your story to me is still so, I guess I want to say mind boggling because maybe it was just your upbringing that is just making you.
Yeah, it, I think so. I mean, I had a I had a good upbringing. I wouldn't change my upbringing for the world, and I know it's helped mold me into the person I am today. Um, but yeah, it was around that time, like you said. I kind of went off topic, but my mom, she had so many days of like days accumulated to be off before.
Or
Yeah, so she eventually said, "I'm just gonna take them all, and once they're done, I'm gonna retire." Because she said, "I don't know, we don't know what's gonna come," and she had been learning what to do, and she said, I'll be the person that takes care of you until we find somebody that does," right? But there was no way that we were gonna change her mind about not doing that. I think she was like, "No, I'm gonna be there for whatever you need." And my dad was like, "Okay, I'm gonna be working and whatever we need for the house," and that was the dynamic. And
wow,
so, yeah, and then eventually I went to Craig Hospital there, which is the next city over. I think it's south of Denver.
wow. Were you living on your own before the accident or
No, no, I've always lived here because, like I said, I was going. The university is about 2 miles down, and it's not uncommon for 20 somethings, even 30 somethings, to still be living with their parent. At least here where
or
we're from, a lot of people live with their parents, and it's like, why would I? Even my parents, like, why would you go live somewhere if you live? School's 2 miles down. They're not. We're not making you. You don't have a curfew or anything. Just go to school, be careful, and get a job, and just do your part, and that's all we ask of you. So, yeah, I was here when that happened.
wow. And so do you think, because we talked about it a little bit, do you think um that you will eventually move out on your own? Is that
I,
a real
so
desire of yours or no?
that's something I do want to at least try. Whether I can or not, we'll see. But one goal I have for sure is to at least say, "Hey, I went out and tried to be on my own," right? If it works, great. If it doesn't work, at least I said, "Hey, I gave it a shot." Um, I try to sometimes I'll think, "Oh, maybe I'll find somewhere not too far from home." Um, Hell, even the neighbors, they've sold their house before, and we're always telling them, like, "If you all are gonna sell it, let me know. At least, it's my own place, even though it's next door, right?" But yeah, it's something that I do want to have an idea of what kind of home I want and right how I want it set up. I have an ex-student of mine who's an architect now who told me one time, "Hey, whenever you're ready to build your own home, let me know." And I'm like, "Okay." Uh, but it is something that I do want to try. Um, because I know a lot of people that are like me. They're the same thing, right? Like again, so C5, C6, I don't have any movement below my chest, right? My arms are pretty strong, but my fingers don't move at all, right? Like I can pick stuff up, light things, but not because my fingers move. I've developed a way to like scoop things up. So that's why I can do that kind of stuff. And I'm pretty independent-ish. Uh the main thing I need help with is like bathing, bowel programs, changing, right? Getting in and out of bed. Those are the main things. Aside from that, most everything else throughout the day I can do myself.
So are you cuz I have 24/7 care, so there's always somebody here or at least within, you know, calling distance. Are
Yeah.
you someone that needs like do you need somebody if you were on your own, would you need somebody to stay with you at night or
Um,
would you be okay?
I think I'd be okay. Now would I need somebody, whoever, like somebody close by that I can rely on in case something happens? Absolutely. Um, but I would be okay by myself at night. Um, the only time I could think of maybe needing somebody is let's say I'm having like a bad spasm that I can't control and my leg is dangling off the bed or something and I'm like in the fear of falling or something, then yeah, I would need somebody to come by or maybe I'm sick or something. But aside from that, most nights, I mean, 99% of the time when I'm in bed, I don't really need anybody unless something drastic happens.
Right.
Um, it's rare. Like
So what
most,
what do you think is what do you think is keeping you from doing that, from moving out on your own now? Is
um,
keeping you? Is it money? Is it fear?
or a little bit is, yeah, a little bit of fear. It's like, dang, this is something haven't, I've never been on my own, even though, when I was younger, I was always kind of out on my own, but never living on my own. A little money, right? Like it's everything's so expensive nowadays, and I have everything here I need, which is hard to leave when you've got everything you need, right? Um, and a little bit is my parents. I know as much as they want me to stay here, I know a little bit want them to go, and they'll be sad, right? Like I think about those things. So I think it's just a combination of all those things. Um, Also, I think I'm a bit of a I don't I don't say it that often, but I think I'm a bit of a loner sometimes, meaning like I love being out and about, but I have a feeling that if I'm there by myself, I'll probably be more by myself than usual. And I don't know if that's a good thing. Not that I would do anything stupid. It's just I know that I'll get comfortable too quickly, and then I really won't want to do anything. Right? I'm just work and go home, work and go home, and then I really won't be doing anything.
You know what? Now that you say that, I never looked at myself as a loner. Um, but because I know my dad always has. He's just, I'm a loner. I could be by myself just fine. I don't need anybody, all that type of stuff. And as I get older, considering the fact that I'm 36 today, as I get older, I'm just like, it's kind of weird because I think I enjoy the best of both worlds.
Yeah,
Like I'm okay with being alone because really I'm never alone. I mean, I have a staff
yeah,
right now in the next room, but I'm okay with being alone. Now at night, you know, if for whatever reason the state of Ohio came and said, we can't, you can't have overnight staff anymore, I would be terrified because I've had incredibly painful things happen at night, like kidney
Mm,
stones. I woke up in the middle of the night just throwing up for no reason,
right.
you know, and so I would be terrified to stay in my house alone at night.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
I don't know. I feel like I'm like you. I love being out and about, but as I get older, I'm like
right.
being alone isn't so bad. Like,
Yeah, I think what's happening with me as I've gotten older is the alone is fine, but some of those alones are starting to feel like lonely. That makes sense.
yeah, yep,
Oh,
absolutely. There's that too.
and and so that's where, finding a partner at some point hopefully comes happens, but if it doesn't, it doesn't. But it's one of those things where as I have gotten older, right, I do feel like, man, I'd like to have somebody just to come home to. And at this point in my life, like it's just like I just want somebody to flip on the TV with me and we'll watch some stupid show or make some food and we'll listen to jazz in the background, whatever it may be, and just hang out and that's it. I'm not expecting, I just want somebody to come home with and just relax and just share our days with, at this point.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
that's been creeping more into my mind as I've gotten older. Because one of the things that I would like to do at some point is at least try to start my own family. Um, I'd like to try to have a kid of my own. But it's
Wow,
tough.
you're 46, my man.
I
We
know. And so, yeah,
we
and so that makes it
get
tough, right?
going.
Like, and that's a problem. Ever since I hit 40, right? Like, you're like, okay, everyone my age has probably already had a kid,
Yeah,
and or they don't want any more kids, or
right.
they just never wanted a kid to begin with, right? So it's like, okay, well, then my pool of people gets a little younger, right? And so now you're looking at people in your 30s, right? It's like, okay, well, uh, who's down to hang out and do that kind of stuff? Well, not a lot of people are. I mean, it's a lot and people tell me all the time, yeah, you'll find somebody. There's plenty of people out there. You're a good guy, blah blah blah. But if I was
Mhm.
if I was the guy you said, I probably would be with somebody. Right? Like if I'm this amazing guy, then why am I not with somebody? And then of course I start thinking it's like, it's bullshit, right? Sometimes it's like, what am I doing? But I don't know. Am I too picky? Maybe, but I'm not gonna settle just because I'm 46 and I've got a disability. I'm not settling, right? Um,
Well,
I
I
want
think too, when people see us, especially in wheelchairs, they automatically think, oh, they're looking for a nurse or a 24/7 caregiver.
yeah, I don't
And
want that.
that's not even coming from the standpoint of, yes, I need 24/7 care. I have
Right,
to have somebody with me all the time. Um, I am not looking for you to be my full-time caregiver, but know
right,
this ahead of time. There will be times where you have to be my full-time caregiver. So if you're not willing to accept that as part of the package,
yeah. Then why?
it's not gonna work. Now,
Right.
for because you mentioned about having a kid, your desire to have a kid.
Hmm.
Was there ever has there ever been a part of you that's like, "Oh, damn, am I gonna be able to, perform sexually?" I mean,
Yeah, I don't.
did you ever find that out? Like, because of your injury, are you still able to do those type of activities?
So I haven't since I got hurt. That I haven't even had the chance to. So who knows? It was so initially like so it's what it's been 18 years now, 19 years. I don't remember, but Um, when it comes to like that, right? Or relationships in general, right? Or even sex, I think the first 8 years, first 10 years was all about I put all my effort into getting as strong as I can, finishing school, getting my teacher's certificate, and getting my master's, right? That's where my focus was on. Now, then at some point I thought maybe I should consider maybe trying to talk to somebody, right? Putting myself out there. But dude, that vulnerability, it took me and it's still something I struggle with to be able to put myself out there and actually think somebody still wants to be with me, right? And like you said, right? I also think whoever it is, I'm gonna need them more than they're gonna need me, right?
Right.
And
Yep.
do I have that do I think that somebody is out there is capable of that? Absolutely, but immediately it's like, oh, but oh, dude, does anybody really want to do that? And then it just like I just start getting in my own head, and it's like, okay, you know what? Never mind. I'm gonna leave
Yeah.
it alone, right? And I've tried, my friends I reluctantly had to put up a dating profile on like one of those dating apps. They set it up for me, and that was a shit show because it's like, dude, I like, I'm looking for somebody smart, somebody that's been to school, right? I'm attracted to
Yeah.
smart people. And maybe I'm being too picky, but again, I'm not just picking anybody. Like I want somebody that's strong that I know that if shit gets tough, they're not gonna be scared. They're gonna be like, okay, let's do this, right? And it's hard to really, right? You have all these other things, right? Like, are they a nice person? Blah blah blah, right? Yes, but things are gonna go bad at some point. And is that the person that's going to be able to buck up and say, you know what, I got you, right?
Yeah.
Um, and that's hard to really feel like somebody's going to be able to do. And then so I just, I start thinking about those things or make up excuses, and it's like, you know what, fuck it, I'm just gonna not even do it anymore, right? Um, and it's this battle that I'm always playing with myself, like in my head, playing in my head that oh, today, I'm gonna go out and just be put myself out there. And it's like, you know what? No, never mind. That sucked.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. And again, the one thing that's about me is ever since I was young, I've always been a more timid person, especially when it comes to that kind of stuff, right? So going up to a girl even before I got hurt was just tough. Like it's just I always met people because of friends, and then we were friends first, and then it's like, "Hey, let's go date," but, like, just finding somebody and just going up to people has never been my thing. That's just hard for me. It always has been before the injury, even worse now. Um, so it's just one of those things that I need to work on, and I know, and I'm running out of time, and it's like, "Dude, do you really wanna have a kid? I'm gonna be an old dad. I might die at a young age," but then it's like, "Dude, it's gonna be hard on the kid." Yeah, it's gonna be hard on the kid, but it's gonna be hard on the kid if they're young or if they're old. So, it goes both
Yeah.
ways, and I just start to there's a battle going on in my head, and nothing ever happens.
It all goes back to hope for the best and prepare for the worst,
Right, yeah,
in what we talked about. I also want to say too, and I don't know if people have suggested this to you, but I almost feel like, especially from a wheelchair user standpoint, that a lot of people automatically assume that because we're in a wheelchair, we want to date someone that's like us in a wheelchair or similar. And I'm like, now, really, honestly, how is that going to work, people?
right, yeah,
I've made all kinds of jokes about it and said, if you can't physically throw me around, I don't want you. Um, you,
yeah, I
and
heard that
part
too.
of that is true, but at the same time, it's like if we're both in a wheelchair, you realize we're never going to have any time alone because we're always going to
Right,
have somebody there caring for us. And
yeah,
they're not gonna want us they're not gonna wanna put us in the position to do the boom chicka boom boom, you
right, yeah,
know?
yeah, it's like, um, how's that gonna work, right? Yeah, It
Exactly. So it's just like,
yeah,
somebody in the relationship is gonna be able body, and it's not gonna be me.
yeah. Yeah, I what I wanted before I got hurt, I still want, and it's just one of the caseworkers at the hospital that said the same thing. She's like, when you're looking for a relationship, if you find somebody else with a disability that you might be interested, just think about it. She said, it hardly ever works, right? Because of everything you said. It's really tough.
Yeah,
Um, and yeah, it's just, I just looking for a girl you know, that
it's a
that that is out there, that's strong-minded, um, is not afraid, and, you know, hopefully a family is in her future, and, that's what I want.
yeah, and one of the things that I was so glad that you opened up to me about when we were talking was that you struggle with being bored, you know,
Yeah,
and when you try to always find something to do, so you're not like, "Oh my god, why am I not dating somebody?" And that's
right.
me too. I I struggle with depression on a daily basis. I'm on
Mhm.
medication for it. But if I'm not doing something, if I'm not doing a podcast, if I'm not doing a pre-call, if I'm not doing a speaking engagement, if I'm not doing meetings, literally, if I don't have any meetings, I'm in bed till 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And one of the main reasons is because it sucks just sitting in a wheelchair all the time. It's
Yeah,
painful, and it's more you say, well, don't you have recline or tilt? Yeah,
yeah,
you I mean, those are wonderful if you're having to, be on a long trip and you need to switch your position. But if I have
right.
a bed that I'm able to transfer to, 9 times out of 10, if I'm not doing anything, I'm gonna transfer straight back to that bed as soon as
Yeah,
possible. And
yeah,
it's ju one of the things that you and I talked about, which I would love for you to expound on, is you always try to keep yourself busy because you're always thinking about, if you're not keeping yourself busy, that's when you're like, why am I not dating somebody? And
right.
that's for me too. If I'm not dating somebody, it's, why don't I have a why don't I have a guy? Why don't I have a man that's
Right.
interested in me? You know, and then I just get into, and then I get into the other thing. Oh, well, my parents have never been supportive about anything that I've ever done. So
Mhm.
why am why was I born into parents that don't really support any? I started going through my whole life and the
Right,
parts that have been really messy. That's why I try to stay busy, you
right,
know?
right. Yeah, you know, we I've kind of lost, I've lost the ability, right? The physical ability to do things, right? And my heart is up and down, right? It just sometimes it feels broken, sometimes it doesn't, but I get over it pretty quickly. But the one thing I have full control over is my mind, right? It's one thing that I have control over.
Love
And
it.
so I try to keep my mind busy. And I love learning new things, right? That's why I try to stay busy, because if I'm not doing something, or I'm not learning something, or experiencing something new, even if it's the smallest little thing, right? Or a little fact that I learned, whatever, then I feel like, ugh, I just feel off. And so I feel like I need to, do something every day. And I have a bunch of little hobbies that I still do. Like, um, before I got hurt, I used to play the guitar. It's right here next to me. It's a reminder every day of something I used to do, but I can't play the damn thing, right? I can just hit the strings, but that's about it. But I still love music, so I pick up the harmonica from time to time, and I just dabble. Um,
Yeah.
I used to be an athlete and do all sorts of things. Well, I try to work out as often as I can, right? I'm doing something. I used to be a magician, like I said before. I still enjoy reading magic books and doing tricks for people from time to time. Um, I love learning. I'm a big science nerd, so I
I love science
enjoy
too. Yeah.
yeah. I'm a big science nerd. I enjoy facts and I enjoy learning new things. Whether it's I graduated with a master's in biology, and so anything having to do with that or any science really. Hell, it doesn't even have to be science half the time. It can just be this new thing that I learned to do. And I keep my mind busy as often as possible because, like I said, that's the one thing I know I have 100% control over for the most part. And why not just do that thing and improve there, right? Because nobody can take that from me. I know my ability to do certain things has been taken over, right? Um,
Yeah.
your heart has a thing of its own. It does what it wants, so I have no control over that. But my mind, I can control it for the most part, right? And I can keep it focused and I can keep going forward and little victories here and there, this little thing that I learned. Hey, that's something I didn't know. And I think one thing that we should be doing all the time is just striving to be better and learn something, right? Um, I don't know. That's the way how I look at it. So I'm always trying to do something. Right? And again, it the secondary part of it is it keeps me from going down, this roller coaster of shit, right? Where all
Right.
you're thinking about is bad things. Why did this happen? Why can't this happen? Why hasn't this happened? What if? And it's like, dude, that's just stay away from that. Let's do this, right? And let's do
Y-
that, right?
You've taught me so much, and we've only known each other within a few days, and especially about keeping your mind busy. And so, now that I'm gonna start doing that now. For me, it's playing Monopoly Go on my phone or something
Yeah.
like that. And you talked about in your pre-call, you actually showed me a book. I don't know if you have it there with you, but you actually showed me a book. Um,
Yeah, it's right here off the let me get it real quick. So
yeah, sure.
what what hold on one second.
No, you're good. So he actually showed me a book, and he's going to get it while he's going to get it. And he talked about how, it had different ways to keep your brain active from actually keeping you from getting dementia. And we talked about that because, my grandfather, that's something that my grandfather is actually struggling with now. He has, dementia and is dealing with sundowners and all that type of stuff. And so you told me, like, this is why you started keeping your mind busy because
Right.
you
So
you have dementia problems in your family too. Go ahead.
yeah. Yeah, so I was here's the book is called Everyday Genius. It just came out. But the author is Nelson Dellis. I have his other 2 books. And Nelson is a memory champion. He's the 6-time US memory champion. And when I one of the reasons I got into like keeping my mind sharp, like you said, is there's history of dementia and Alzheimer's in the family. And studies show that if you keep your mind sharp and you learn techniques to do those things, your chances of getting that go down. And the other thing was when I got hurt, this was before I started getting into
Sure.
studying like memory techniques. I was going back to school and I said, how in the hell am I going to learn? Right. I'm still a bio major with a chemistry minor. How am I going to do these things without the ability to write? How am I gonna learn, right? Because, whenever they're talking about whether you're learning anything, right? You have to, like, say it. You have to read
Yeah.
it. You have to write it. You have to hear it, right? You have to say it. You have to do all these things. And the more you do it, the better you can memorize certain things, right? And that's
Sure.
just in general, right? That's not even using techniques. And so one of the things I had to figure out right away is how am I gonna learn? What am I gonna do, right? And luckily enough for me, I met some amazing, classmates. I went to the university and I said, "Hey, this is my situation." The student services at the university mentioned, we've got these people that can help you write if you need somebody to take notes for you, if you need to certain accommodations for testing, blah blah blah, right? And so one of the things they said is, if you can't, we will write for you and we'll have somebody follow you if you need to, but we would recommend you finding somebody in class that's taking the same class and have them write the notes for you. We'll give them the paper with carbon paper so you can take the the copies with you, and then will they would give them like letters of recommendation and stuff like that for helping out. And
Sure.
so I was like, okay, I'll try it. And I met some amazing people. I'm still friends with them. I haven't talked to them in a while, but we keep in touch through Facebook. And they were the first people I met that were my scribes, right? For testing. And we became really good friends and we would study together and do all these things. But I always in the back of my mind, I was like, man, there's gotta be something more I can do to learn, right? Um, and so that's when I got into studying memory techniques and keeping my mind busy in that way because now I can again, I'm at a small disadvantage because let's say with a group of people and we need to like draw these things or like listen to things and there's a lot of stuff going on and we're learning this thing. Well, I can't do a lot of those things, but what can I do? Where can I improve? And now I've learned how to take in information without having to write things or you know repeat it over and over in my head until I get it right. Now I've learned how to get things stored in there and say, okay, you know what? I've got the idea right. I can review it a little bit later. Eventually, yes, I did find out how to write, and I have a technique for writing now, but um, it's just kind of a cheat code for me that helps for those kind of things, but at the same time, it keeps my mind sharp, and I know that it's helping me in the long term. Just keep some of that dementia and Alzheimer's at bay as best as I can, and do what I can to improve my chances of not getting that. Right. So it's
I am certainly, because anybody who knows me personally knows that, I've been blessed with one of the greatest minds, one of the greatest memories that, you know, I can tell you stuff that happened 10 years ago and my mom would be like, "What? That happened?"
yeah,
Um, I mean, other people will tell me, "Hey, I have these appointments today," and I'll remember their appointments plus my own, So
mhm,
it's just one of
yeah,
the things that I've been blessed with. Um, and now I'm working on, because I'm a speaker, and I'm giving speeches. And last week, you guys heard me mention on the podcast that shortly after that taping, I was going to testify in front of the Ohio legislature, and I did. And I want to talk with you a little bit about that
yeah,
too, because I want to talk about, you're a professor now, a teacher, and which I think is another amazing thing. And I talked to you about something in the pre-call that happened to me shortly after I testified. And I know that, from my testimony on last week, that a lot of the members in the committee, including Chairman Gary Click, shout out to you. You actually said you've heard of my podcast and you like it, so I hope you're listening. But I wanted to ask you, Daniel, um, because one of the things that I struggle with as a person with a disability, I've had this all my life.
mhm,
And so I feel like I struggle getting people to look at me as a grown ass adult man and stop
right.
treating me with kid gloves. And so I'm wondering, um, from your perspective, like as soon as your disability happened or shortly thereafter, did you feel like the people who always knew you started treating you differently or fragile because of your injury? And how do you handle that? And especially with your
Right.
kids, because you're in a position of authority. So
Right.
do you feel
Um,
affected?
okay, so initially, we'll talk about initially, right? When I first got back, and at first it was like I'm just gonna stay at home and figure things out, right? But when I finally said I need to go out and hang out with some friends, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they had come over, but at home it's different than out and about, right? And definitely there was a little bit of uh, they were being a little too careful, right? Like they didn't want to hurt me, like I was fragile almost. That was definitely a thing, right? And to kind of get over that hump, I would kind of shit on them. So what I for me for that for because I know those friends, and in order for them to breathe and be like, okay, I don't have to freak out, is for me for them, I needed to come from a place of like I'm gonna fuck with you a little bit, and just to
Ah,
break that tension.
I
Um,
love it.
and so I would screw with them all the time, right? Because I didn't want them to be babysitting me, right? We're out to have some fun. Let's be out and have some fun. And if I need something, I'll let you know. And I know you're gonna help me out. But let's just go out, take your breath. Nothing's changed. I'm just in a wheelchair and I get to go in without being searched. And if a lady wants to sit on my lap, she can sit on my lap. That's the only difference. Right? Like it is what it is, and let's just have fun with it, right?
Yeah.
And that was my angle with my friends, right? I tried to joke with them and screw around with them just to ease that tension. And that worked really well. And I see them from time. I don't have to see my friends all the time. We every time I see them, we go back to bullshit. And they know how I am now, and it's okay, right? And they they know that if I think what one thing I did at the beginning with all my friends is like, guys, I'm good, right? If I need something, I'm gonna ask you, right? You can ask me if I need anything. Don't stop asking. But if I really, really need something, I'll give you the sign or I'll say something, right? And so I think we were out enough and they got comfortable enough to be like, okay, we can breathe. We don't have to like be like hawks or helicopters just surrounding you the whole time, right? And I think that's how I approached my friends. Um, Now, when it comes to the classroom, right? You said I'm coming from like a from authority, right? I am their teacher. Um,
Yeah.
One of the things that I heard someone say once that said to be a good teacher means to try to understand your students as best as possible, right? Know where they're coming from, try to understand their world a little bit, even though their world is right so different from my world when I was their age, right? It's totally different.
Yep.
But I try to understand, right? And I try to come with them at that angle of like, there's a new generation. I kind of have an idea of what they like or don't like, or what the slang term of the week is, or whatever, right? And one of the first things I tell them in that first day of class is like, guys, I'm in a wheelchair because of this, this, and this. This is what happened to me. And I don't want you to freak out about this. At some point in your life, and maybe you already do know somebody that has a disability or is in a wheelchair. And I'm one of those people, right? So it's my job now to educate you as much as I can and show you all these things that go on behind the scenes. That way, when you're out in the real world, you know roughly what to do or what you shouldn't do. And I tell them I'm going to be as honest as I can with you about things in life that happen. And I expect the same from you, right? We need honesty, we need respect back and forth. And if we can do that, we're going to be okay. And that's really all I need to tell them. And from that point on, I give them a time to ask me questions, right? Just to get it out of the way, because I'm sure you've met people in the past. They want to know what's wrong or what happened or why are you in this chair, right?
Mhm.
And so I give them that opportunity instead of shying away from it, because I'm sure a lot of teachers don't want to get too personal with them with their sites, and I totally understand that, right? For me, there's a lot that I do share with my students, because I expect them to be honest with me about certain things, because a lot of my students are seniors, they're going to be gone, and they have questions about what to expect for the next chapter of their life, right? So if I expect them to open up with me, I need to open up with them a little bit. And so I'll give them that. And
And for you, you're in a different case though, because as soon as they walk into the classroom,
mhm,
they notice that you're not standing at the podium like a normal teacher.
right,
You're in a wheelchair. So it's not like, I'm a teacher who's been divorced 3 times. My students
right,
don't need to know that. It's none
right,
of their business. But as soon as they walk in and see you, they know that you have to use that to get around. So, of
right,
course, they're going to come up to you and be like, hey, yo, teach. Now, of course, they're not going to say that, but
Right,
they're
right,
going to
right,
be
right.
like, hey, yo, teach. In their head, they're going to be, what happened, bruh? Like,
Right, 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 right.
and
And
so
I
you
make
can't
sure to
you can't be
yeah,
like,
I make
that's none of your business. We're talking about
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. So there's some things that I'll just tell them if it's too personal or something, I'm just like, maybe we'll get into that later. That's all I say. Um, but I do give them the opportunity to ask questions. And now again, the good thing is a lot of them have seen me on campus because, like I said, most of them are seniors. So they've seen me on campus already. They've seen me around. They just haven't had me until that point. So hopefully at that point, they know a little bit about me from my current students and they know a little bit of what to expect, right? So that kind of helps as well. Unless it's a brand new student that's never seen me, which is crazy because I'm kind of all over the place. But I think it's important to give them a little bit and say, guys, if there's any questions, right now is the perfect time to ask because um, you know, I'm sure you're curious and I would rather you get it from me than from somebody else, right? And so I think they can appreciate that and be like, okay, he's opening up to us. There should be no reason for us to open up with him. Be honest and respect, the respect is going to go both ways. And that seems to have worked, for the last 10 years
Sure.
that I've been doing it.
Sure. Okay, so what about, did you feel like your mom or dad tried to treat you with kid gloves now because you had a disability, or was it just like,
I think every once in a while, they kind of do get a little bit, I expect that every once in a while, they're gonna, it's like be extra careful and it's like they want who's gonna be there, right? And I get it. Maybe I'm going to some place that I haven't been to before, right?
sure,
They're still parents and they still worry, and I get that. But I think
sure,
for the most part, they know who I'm gonna be with, who I'm gonna hang out with, where I'm going, and they're like, okay, just the only thing I need to know, let them know is where, when I get there and then when I'm leaving, right? That's pretty much it.
yeah,
I think they deserve that much to say, hey, mom and dad, I'm okay. Because I know they worry, right? I can't if something crazy goes on, I can't protect myself. I can't haul ass running away from danger, right? So I'll just
yeah,
let them know. I'll text them from time to time. Hey, I'm okay.
yeah,
Um, but there were times that at first, right, that they were kind of tentative to let me do things. But I think that's why my friends did such a good job of coming over and hanging out with me, and they learned how to get me in the vehicle and out the vehicle. This is before I drove, right? Before I learned how to drive. And my parents taught them, This is what you're gonna have to do. This is what you need to do in case this happens." And all my friends were amazing when it came to that. So my parents earned their trust, and they're saying, "Okay, guys, y'all can go have fun." And it just kind of built up from there. But it took a little bit. But
that
again, it's always gonna be I know it's always gonna be something in the back of their mind that they just wanna make sure that I'm okay.
right. Do you
Now
ever, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say out in public, right? So I talked about with my friends and my students, but how about like everyday stuff? Like you experience something, when you gave your speech, right? Everyday people, right?
Yeah, so
Um,
I wanted to talk about that because, yeah, last week I would, and I've dealt with this my whole life, and that's why I wanted to ask you if you ever dealt with this. Like, anybody who sees me, it seems like I'm either their bud or what's going on, Bubba, and they don't even know me. It's like, okay, and you're just seeing me, or I'm somebody's hun or sweetheart,
yeah,
okay, or buddy, whatever.
right.
And I had just finished in front of all these people, senators and committee members of this housing committee, and I was waiting on my ride, and I was talking to this lady that was in the same room, and I was giving her all my stuff, and I was telling her, check out my website, check out this, check out that. And she was like, "Oh, I have a great guest for your podcast that would be phenomenal." And I was like, "Yeah, tell him to hit me up, whatever." And at the end of the conversation, she was like, "Well, thanks for coming in, buddy." I'm like, "Huh?
Yeah,
You and I just
yeah,
met
yeah, yeah,
minutes ago. Like, why, like, you just
yeah,
testify in front of your colleagues." And it's like, thanks for coming in, buddy. As if I'm like, or I think she said, thanks for coming in, bud, or something, and it's just kind of like, as if she was talking to like one of her kids, like, hey, you did a great job at school today, bud. That's how I
Right.
took it. But then again,
It's
like, I'm someone who wears my feelings on my sleeve, but at the same time,
yeah.
just I feel like I'm always having to prove myself to somebody as to whether
Right.
or not I can do what I'm doing. And so I just wanted to see if you encountered that disrespect since your
Uh,
disability. And I know for a lot of people, it's not intentional,
yeah, no, I get that. Yeah.
but it's so annoying though. It's like,
Right.
I guess you have to experience it to understand
Yeah.
what we're talking about. But it's like,
Yeah. Yeah. It's like this idea that like just because we have this disability, it's like, wow, really good job that you're out here doing this stuff. It's like, dude, like I'm just a guy. Like, don't treat me any less because I'm in this wheelchair, right? It's just I have to do it differently. And yeah, that's happened where it's like, I can't believe you've done all these things, Dan. Like, wow, that's really good for you. And it kind of is like, why wouldn't I do these things? You know what I mean? Just because I've got this thing. I think sometimes people correlate like wheelchair use to maybe either you're being sick or normally you're not supposed to be doing these things. How are you doing these things? Right. And it's like,
yeah,
I don't know where that comes from, where that thought process comes from. And then you're right. Sometimes when I've never really had the name thing really bother me. You know what bothers me is when they like put their hand on my head or like on my on the shoulder. It's like it's gonna be okay. It's like I'm not gonna do that, right? I'm not gonna like swing their thing away. I know they mean it from a good place, but at the same time, I'm like, there's no need for that. Um, I don't know how if I were to, I guess in the last 18, 19 years, I'm sure somebody at one point said something like that that I didn't like, and I think what happens or what I've done is when I first meet them, especially if I'm going into a place where I don't know anybody and I may have heard stuff about them or this group that I'm going into or whatever, right? I'm gonna be pretty I can be two things. I can be very laid back, nice to meet you, how's it going, joke immediately, or I can be very assertive, right?
right,
Depending on the situation. And if I'm more of the chill kind of thing, I'm gonna expect them to say bud or something like that. But if I've ever been told something and I don't like the way they say it, like in your case, what I generally say is like, "Hey, look, we just met, and I know you mean it from the place, but I have a name. My name is Daniel. I don't know you very well, and I don't mean to be, I don't want to come off as mean, but let's just kind of, meet each other and get to know each other, and eventually, we can get to that point where we have this kind of relationship. Because if they can't handle you just being straight up honest like that, like you don't mean it in a mean way. It's just like, hey, I'm Nicholas, right? Um, I'm not Bud yet, right? If they can't handle that, is that someone you want to be around, right?
right,
And so I think one of the things that I've found is that people get hurt really quickly, like when it comes to like telling them they did something wrong, right? Or telling them that they should be doing something when they don't. Um, and it's not that you're in trouble or I'm getting mad at you. It's just that I'm just preparing you, right? This is what's going to happen and this is how things are going to go. And I think if you want people to do that, unfortunately nowadays people don't read the room very well. You just kind of have to tell them. And if they can't handle it, that's a them problem. It's not a you problem. Like I
yeah,
think um but at least you've said what you wanted to say, right? And and there'll be different ways of saying it. I feel like I just said it kind of in a mean way, but I'm not being mean or anything. I just, hey, look, this is our relationship right now. Um, you know, whether or not they think, man, that guy was a dick or that guy was an asshole. Again, that's not on me, right? Like,
Right.
and yeah, do I care if I hurt somebody's feelings? Maybe I did, but there's worse things in life than being told, "Hey, you know what? Next time, just it's Nicholas, or next time it's Daniel." Right? Just and then once we've hung around for a bit and we get comfortable enough with each other, then sure, right? But I think that's
Yeah.
okay to feel like you were kind of like felt like less than, right? Because yeah, you're right. It's something that we deal with a lot. Um, and again, I don't know why people feel the need to kind of say things like that or treat us slightly differently. Um, but I just think that in some cases you just kind of need to let them know.
Yeah.
Because we're not pushovers. You're not, dude. You were at a speech. You were doing this thing, right? You command some respect, and it's okay to want that respect.
Absolutely. And that's all I even though I mean the lady, she knew my name and she was like, "Thanks for coming in, Nick. All right, bud, I'll see you later." And I was just kind of like, okay. I felt like at that point, even though she did address me by my name and say, "Thanks for coming in, Nick," I felt like when she ended with that, I felt like it was almost, like my mother talking to me. Like it
Right.
was like, okay. It's like,
Well,
"Oh,
you're
all
good.
right now." Um, and
Mhm.
so for me, it just rubbed me the wrong way. And I was like, I'm gonna talk to Dan about that when we have
Yeah.
our podcast. And I'm
Well,
glad
I
I
think it's just one of those things where it's just I try to the other thing I have done in the past when I've met somebody for the first time, and I'm gonna say goodbye, and I'm not sure, and this is more if I don't know if they know my name, and it kind of avoids this. Um, this is when I'm saying goodbye to them, just I will be the one to end the conversation. So it kind of what I might do sometimes is it was again, it was really nice to meet you. In case you forgot, it's Daniel again. And then I look forward to seeing you. And then immediately just go. Right. I don't give them a chance to right because now I'm kind of I know they wanted to say bye, right? But it kind of helps me end it on my terms and nothing weird's gonna happen. Right. And that's helped me. That's one thing that I don't know. I've done it in the past when I've met people where I'm not sure if they remember my name or if I feel that they might have this idea about me that might be good or bad. You know what? I'm just gonna end it myself and do it on my terms instead of like something randomly happen. But again, that's just something I've done in the past.
well,
Um,
even for me, even if they said, "Thanks for coming in, Nick. It was really great having you, my friend," I would have been great with that. But it's just
yeah,
the whole terminology, bud or buddy
mhm,
is used for like to address the little kid, or like I said, if you know somebody personally, you're going to be like,
yeah,
"All right, bud, see you later. It was great hanging out with you." That type of
yeah.
way.
I part of it is just society these days. I think people get too comfortable a little bit. I think they think that if I've met you online, then I know you well, and there's a lot of factors that go into it as well, and I get it. But again, that's just something that you know you just have to kind of approach, right? To have different approaches or
Sure.
different things that you might want to do in the future in case that happens again. Like I said, for me, it doesn't. I can't think of that many times it's ever happened, but I hear a lot. It's just every grandmother, every aunt, or every other like friend's grandmother, aunt, or parent. They're like the big aunt or uncle, and they want to put their hand on you, and it's just a cultural thing down here, and it's like right. But it is what it is, and I just pick my battles sometimes, and
Yeah. Well, your audience knows this from the wheelchair roundtable, but my audience does not know this, is that you have a cool nickname that your friends gave you, and
Oh, yeah.
I I I think it fits you well. Not only just because I, I think you're absolutely handsome, and I think it fits you well. Um, the Quad Father. I
Yeah, Godfather.
I I love that
Yeah,
because
it
not only because of your looks, I think it fits you because of your looks, but it rocks. I love it. So why don't you tell the audience before we go, kind of ending on a light note because we've talked
yeah,
a lot about a
yeah, yeah.
um
Um,
how
okay,
did
yeah,
that
so
come about?
I was I was out, and by the way, just FYI, I found out later that there's somebody else that has that name that's also in a wheelchair, but, I'll tell you how we came up with it. I was at, a bar with some friends one time, and, I was meeting some of their friends for the first time, and so anytime I'm gonna meet some people for the first time, I know they're gonna ask questions about, what happened and blah, 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 and I'm never it's rare that I don't wanna talk about it. If somebody asks a question, I'll answer it. So I told him, "This happened to me," and then I told him I'm a quadriplegic. Um, and it was kinda loud, so they were like, "A quad?" And I said, "Yeah, it's short for quadriplegic, right?" And they were like, "Oh, quad, a quad." And I was, "Yeah, I'm a quad." Um, and then one of their friends, this lady, she was kinda being flirtatious a little bit, and she said something about, "Ay, papi," right, which means daddy, basically. "Hi, Bobby, don't worry about it. You're a cute guy." But I don't know what she was talking about. She was talking to me, and
Yeah,
then one of the guys said, "Dude, you're a quad poppy," and we started laughing about it. And then, um, it kinda stuck there for a couple minutes, but it just sounded funny to say quad poppy. And,
yeah,
then somebody said I was like, "What about, like, quad father, like The Godfather?" And then we're all like, "Oh, dude, that's perfect, right?" So it kinda stuck from there, and we just kind of it stuck from there, and I was the quad father, and, like, a year later, I did a 10K, on my hand cycle, and, my friend, he makes shirts, and we got that little Godfather emblem with the little strings and that cross, and at the
right.
bottom, it's the quad father, and we all wore that shirt for the run, and it kinda stuck around, and that's where that came from. So that's why every time Rico does the, introduction for our podcast, he says the quad father.
That's awesome. I love that, and like I said, it fits you so well.
Yeah.
Uh, I have loved every minute of this conversation. Thank you for doing this, my friend.
Oh, thank you for having me. I wanna say something, Nick.
Yeah,
You've given me a lot of props in this, podcast, but you deserve your props too, Nick. You have
thank
24-hour service. There's a lot of things that you need help with, and you are doing it alone. You've done something that I should have done a long time ago, and I haven't. You, my friend, are a rock star because you're out there doing the damn thing. And, I know when we talked in your podcast, you were given shit for not being able to work, and that was really shitty of what they said. And we can talk about that some other time. But dude, you're a rock star. Like you're out there living what I wish I could do right now, and I need to do. Get out on my own, take that risk because I'm sure it was so hard and scary for you to do. And you got
yeah.
past that fear, and you're doing the damn thing. And that deserves like some mad props because you need to, we need to give you more credit for that. Like you're doing the damn thing, and I'm proud of you for doing that.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm glad, when somebody tells me that, hey, I'm proud of you for doing this, that means a lot because I don't hear it, unfortunately,
Right.
from, my family who said, oh, you'll never do this. You know,
Yeah.
when I told them I was testifying in front of the housing committee this week, the
Mhm.
response was, "Oh, we'll pray it goes well." And I was like, and I appreciate that. I'm a man of faith, whatever.
Right.
But why couldn't I just hear for the love of God? Like,
Right. Right. Right.
wow, he's testifying before a housing committee in Congress.
That's
in
a
the
big deal.
legislature. Like, why didn't I hear the words, "Oh my god, I'm so proud of you." You know,
Yeah.
but it's like, and I for me, I'm like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over again and expecting different results. I'm the
Mhm.
definition of insanity right here because I'm expecting different results every time I tell the same people, "Hey, guess what? I'm accomplishing something new and I never thought I would." And I'm telling the same people who never thought I would accomplish all the other things before that, you know,
Yeah.
and I'm expecting different results. And so it's just,
Right.
it really means a lot that you actually took the time to say that. And I,
Yeah.
I really, really appreciate it. And I will say, you know, I have had those times, and God, you can listen to someone else's prayer right now. You don't need to listen to this. I've had those times where I'm like, man, I wish I could just go back home. You know, cooked the homemade cooked food, making sure that everything is paid and I don't
Right.
have to worry about anything, being able to just show up at the holidays and not have to worry about, oh, what am I going to do for dinner during the holidays? Am I going to hang out with somebody or am I going to be alone? You know, and so those are the times where I've said I wish I could go back home, but at the same time, I
Right.
remember the mental and the emotional abuse of you're never going to be able to do this. And oh, by the way, because you're here and you can't get away from us, guess what? We get to control everything you do.
Right.
So
Right. Right.
um do and say and so forth. So for me, I mean, you fortunately don't have that situation. But what I will tell you and everybody else who's out there listening is that 65% of disabled people, maybe a stronger number, are living with caregivers over the age of 65. So I I don't know if your parents are in that age group yet, but really
Yeah.
Ye if I can just encourage you, Dan, like, you really need to start looking into that because I know you're self-independent anyway, so
Right.
your parents probably don't have to do a lot
Yeah.
of stuff for you physically, but you just don't wanna get to that point, and I know you have an incredible family, and we've talked
Yeah.
about that. But you just don't wanna get to that point, "Oh, shit, everybody that was around me is gone now. What do I do?" I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure it would be great, but I wanna see you to a point where you're, like, not having to figure that out once everybody else is gone.
Right. Yeah. Have a plan. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, and it's something I think about often. Of what am I going to do? How am I going to do it? Right. And it's it's something that do need to work on definitely, and it's one of my goals. Right. There's some big goals that I have, that being one of them. And definitely I will work on that because I know it's something I need to do. Uh, Got to go out there and do that thing that you're doing, and and see what
Well,
happens.
thank you so much. I That means the world to me, and you and I are gonna continue to stay friends. I'm going to do my best not to blow up your phone, but sometimes I might want to just because you're an incredible dude. And I just really thank you for doing this podcast. It's been a wonderful birthday present to me to spend part of my day with you. And so I want to thank Daniel for being on the podcast, Nick Speak. So thank you so much, Daniel, for being on the show.
Thank you.
And stay right there because we'll have a conversation off camera here in a second. But I, yeah, I'm so blessed to be going around the sun for a 36th time. And I didn't think that, what a way to end my 35th year and begin my 36th year testifying before a legislative committee. And somebody said to me right after that was over, they said, "Nick, I hope you know that this isn't over. This is just the beginning." And I'm like, well, Uh, duh, what does that mean? I mean, I've already been doing public speaking. What does that mean? Do you think I'm going into politics or something? Because I certainly don't want that. But at the same time, I realize that if any real change is going to be done in the disabled community, it has to be done through people like me. It has to be done through people like Dan and Rico and all those other. And honestly, I don't know. It may be a calling. I mean, I got in front of that committee, man, and I fired a bunch of things off, and I was just like, wow.
Good. Yeah, no, it's gonna take people like you to just keep banging on that door. Eventually, it's gonna come down, right? But you gotta just keep going, right? Baby steps, right? Just chipping away, chipping away, chipping away, and eventually
Yeah.
it'll happen.
Yeah. And so I'm thankful to God for a 36th year, and hopefully it's as good as my 35th. I can't wait to see what's gonna happen. And thank you guys for being here today on my birthday show. If you want to do anything for me, hit that subscribe button on my YouTube channel to get us to 1,000 subscribers. Right now, as of this recording, I think we're at 831 subscribers. So if I could get to 1,000 subscribers on my birthday and be able to monetize on my YouTube channel, that would be awesome. So if you could help me do that, I would appreciate it. I also have a GoFundMe and my link tree there. If you could support that, it says van fund, although it is helping me eventually achieve a van. It also is helping me continue keeping this podcast come to you on the air. So if you can help me do that as well, I would appreciate it. Thank you so much for being with me on my birthday. This is the Nick Speaks podcast, the podcast dedicated to the disabled community, where we speak out, and speak loud about the issues that matter to the disabled the most. Thank you guys for joining me, and I will see you next week. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Nick Speaks podcast, where we speak up, speak out, and speak loud for the disabled community. If today's conversation resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss a new episode. You can find Nick across all platforms by visiting his link tree in the show notes. And please leave a comment to join the conversation. Until next time, keep speaking up, keep speaking out, and keep speaking loud.